Welcome to the Women Inspire Aspire podcast. In this episode, I talked to Shalini Khanna about disabilities studies. We have with us today Shalini Khanna, who has been awarded Top 75 Women Transforming India by NITI Ayogh. She is the chairperson of Skill Council for Persons with Disability, director of National Association for Blind India Center for Blind Women and Disability Studies, country director for Discovering Hands India, and investigations expert and actively involved in POSH activities. Welcome to the show, Mrs. Shalini. It's a pleasure and honor to have you in our podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Venkat, and I'm fine, and it's a pleasure to be on board with you today on your podcast.
Okay, great. Tell us a bit about your background.
So my background is actually of qualitative market research. I entered the line very early on. If any of the audience knows Quantum Market Research, it's a big firm now. And at that time, it was the only market research company into qualitative market research. And that's where I learned the whole trade. I immediately entered after graduation. And after learning quite a bit and working there for 3 years, I moved out to do my master's. And I became a freelancer at that time. Well, that freelance work in market research walked with me for very, very long, till 2010. From 1996, I was into freelance market research. And in 1998, I think I did join NAB, the education branch in Delhi, school education branch, as a volunteer first. And then by the time my master's was over, I had done my industrial relations and personnel management too. And I was not sure if I wanted to enter corporate in the HR at that time. At that time, there was not much corporate in Delhi. And I felt when I started going to this particular blind school where the children would go out to mainstream schools in the morning, to all the great mainstream schools like St. Mary's or DPS or Tagore International, they would come back to an environment where there were not very educated maids. And it's an NGO. It was NAB again, and they had limited resources. So I saw a lot of dual life that they were living. They had to really adjust back with limitations. I felt my HR skills or the personnel management skills was much needed there. And in 99, I think I joined them as their student welfare dean. And I think my future was written pretty much there. I was very happy in doing what I was doing. And then I did a research in status of blind women in India in year 2000 for Asian Blind Union. And the findings of that study decided the existence of Center for Blind Women, which was given to me to start. And that's how the journey started in 2002.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Can you share some interesting experiences that you have come across during this long journey with help to the disabled people?
There are so many. I mean, we have trained about 3,000 to 4,000 women directly. And indirectly, the center has trained more than 27,000 women and children with disabilities. And there are thousands of stories now which kind of make the backbone of my existence, I feel. I've had women who have come from not just underprivileged. I mean, imagine a blind girl in the rural India not getting out of her house for 18 years, not getting out of her house because the parents were not very keen on letting the neighbors know that she exists in their household. They were scared of the stigma. And when she's 18 plus, when she's about 20, they feel that now, they start feeling scared that if we don't think of her right now, where she's going to go, then as we're getting older, she's going to be dependent on the other siblings or something, which is not fair to anyone. And that's when they start thinking of getting her out of home. And that's when they bring her to the center. And we have had girls who have not left their single hut for 18, 19 years in the rural India. And the journey to the center is the first time that she has ever got out of the home. There are cases where we saw blind girls being gifted like a trousseau in a marriage with the sister to the same man. Like the sister is sighted and she's getting married. Parents don't know what to do with this blind sister. So they give her away in marriage to the same guy, like a commodity that you can just use her because she doesn't know any work of home. She doesn't know how to cook. She doesn't know, there is no gender to her anymore. There is no role that she has that parents know about. And this was what we found in the research before bringing the center into existence. And these are the realities the center was based on. After that, we have got girls who have had to fight a lot at home to get out of the house, where parents tell them that if you get out of the house, you're never going to come back. And I've heard this from uneducated blind girls that, there were forest areas out of which I'm coming. I mean, the tribals and all. And they said somebody will kill you in the forest when you travel, with unknown people to the city and try to get admission somewhere. And she says, right now also I'm living death. So how about just taking the risk? Maybe I'll find life somewhere. And that's how I ended up here. And I don't want to go back because there's nothing to do back in my village. And here I've got life, I got identity, I'm learning, and I'll get to work. So many. I mean, there are so many blind girls who've gone back into their cities and identified blind beggars, the girls who were begging along with their mothers, and they got them here to start learning something so that they can stand on their feet. So, I mean, I'm full of stories, and I can maybe write a book myself sometime in life.
Absolutely, you should write that book. It's really heartbreaking to hear these stories, and it really gives hope that you're doing the great work to enable them. I saw in your LinkedIn profile that you are also involved with an organization called Discovering Hands India. So, can
Yeah.
you tell us a bit about that?
So, Discovering Hands discovered us, actually. Discovering Hands is an organization based in Germany. And we were sought by some doctors who they had got in touch in India. Actually, it's an organization started by Dr. Frank Hoffman. He's a German doctor, a gynecologist surgeon. And as you know, mammography is, prevalent. It was the most prevalent technique in the world. But not many women have been able to access it for breast cancer detection in time. Out of sheer unwillingness or laziness or whatever. And it is accessible only after a certain age, after 50 years of age. Most European countries allow women to walk freely to, go and get themselves checked up. So a lot of young generation is getting breast cancer too. And I guess they were coming to Dr. Frank, and Dr. Hoffman he tried to figure out why people can't really do a self-breast check as most doctors keep actively professing. So I think this is what he told me, that he tried checking himself up in his bath one day, that what is the problem? Why do women not check themselves up so actively? And he said while checking himself up, he had to close his eyes after some time to focus. But that focus doesn't stay very long, and so the self check becomes very random. It is not thorough. For the thorough checkup, you should keep focused for some time, and that's when he felt that to keep that focus, maybe it's best to reach out to people, women especially, who have their eyes shut by default. And that's how he reached out to a blind school in Germany. And this was about 15, 17 years back. And he found success slowly in their technique. And it is now prevalent in Germany, in Austria. This technique of earliest breast screening is pretty successful in those nations and covered under insurance. So I guess he was wanting to kind of spread this technique far and wide. And when you do your research, India has the most number of deaths because of breast cancer. And India has the most number of blind women in the world. So I'm sure anybody would have found that on the internet. And that's how he reached out to a public health organization in India, especially in Gurgaon. And then they looked out for us to see where can blind girls be trained. And that's how we received this beautiful training in 2017. In 2017 itself, we traveled with 4 trainers to Germany to receive this training as trainers, and that's how, when we came back, we started the training in India. I gave you a very, very detailed background.
Thank you so much. That's pretty informative, and it will be very useful for people who is looking out for help in this area. Now, I see that you are an investigations expert too.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us a bit about your role and your accomplishments in this area so far?
Yeah. POSH came into India many years back now. In 2013, I think the Vishaka guidelines were put into implementation. So from 2015, I think, in fact, or 2014, I was contacted by one organization, GenPact. At that time, they were looking for an NGO expert, but at that time, the law was not really so strict at that time. In fact, it had not even come into play, I think. It was before 2014 that they got in touch, and they said it was their employment practice. It was their policy to engage somebody from outside to be on the internal complaints committee. And that's where, so since I was already earlier engaged with qualitative market research, understanding consumer analysis was my forte, and it is an investigative study technique. So once I was initiated into the committee by GenPact, I learned investigations in a little more deeper manner there for prevention of sexual harassment. And then these guidelines started getting implemented in India pretty much in many corporates. And that's how people started contacting me. And our law says that you have to have an NGO expert on your board, on the panel. So since I was already kind of trained into investigations, I started helping out the companies because there was no such background in corporates, especially in the smaller companies. People really didn't have investigation experts into sexual harassment and stuff. So that's how this whole technique, I guess, I grew up to learn more and more with time. And yeah, that's how, I think it's my passion also for investigations that I learned slowly and got into it quite a bit.
Okay, great. So, can you share some methods that you employ when you are doing the investigations?
See, it is a fair way of questioning, keeping the natural justice in mind, that you have to be open to both sides. Investigations, I feel investigations, key rule is that start from the basis that either both the parties are lying or both the parties are right, so that you're very open, you're unbiased. Though the act demands a little favor to the women. And the act is made in favor of women. It's prevention of sexual harassment of women in the workplace. But to be just to both the parties, you have to be very open that either party could be lying or untruthful. And my work with women in the past so many years, I've been working with women for last 23 years in focus, women in focus. That also helped me because I had a fair understanding into how the society is treating them at homes and what kind of mindset are they working from. So one has to bear in mind that many women are not able to really talk about a lot of details openly. They are afraid, even if they are saying the truth, they're being very honest. They're not very clear in their mind what to bring to the table when investigations are going on. So the probe that market research had taught me helps a lot. You have to probe without prompting. That you have to remember, because prompting might be putting words into their mouths. And you might be missing out on many details when you prompt, certain topics. It's much better to be a great listener in investigations. And it's always good to choose one person in the whole team to question and talk. Others can wait for their questions before the whole discussion is over, because the minute you break the flow, the other person gets time. If they have to hide the truth, they will get time to hide the truth. So I can't really tell you here all the minute details of investigations, but this is a very important fact that try to keep one person to do the questioning and better be good listeners than just keep questioning, because once the other person is in flow of answering, they will answer much more. They will speak out much more on their own, because the details are only with those two people. And most of the time, you don't have witnesses or evidences in such cases. But it is an evidence-based approach that you have to take. I mean, it's after all, the ICCs have the powers of civil court, and they have to, investigate on basis of some kind of evidence or witnesses. In most such cases, you don't find them, but circumstantial evidences are there, and you have to dig deeper to find them. After every detail, you have to ask who and why and where. Keep digging more and you will get the answers.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing those important tips. I'm sure that it is not only helpful in investigations but also to us in our day to day lives when you are dealing with finding out the truth.
I feel in administration, in management, in the office, it helps a lot when you do not shut down a person after knowing just the first phase of the details. It's much better to keep listening and ask more questions. You will definitely get to the bottom of the truth.
Thank you so much. Now, shifting gears, at the Skill Council for Persons with Disability, do you help only the blind people or the other disabilities also?
All the disabilities. In fact, the Skill Council is growing to include many more disabilities by every year. I mean, the government has included about 21 disabilities in the law, if not more now. I think this is the number. And the primary disabilities that you see prevalent in the workspaces or in the training spaces are 4 or 5 only. Visual impairment, hearing impairment, orthopedic, and intellectual disabilities. But there are many more now in the law, like the leprosy cured, for example. And in intellectual impairment also, there are many disabilities included, like dyslexia every disability has to be understood to take the disabled people to a just position and to a skilled position in the country. So the Skill Council started with 4, 5 prevalent disabilities, but it's definitely moving on to include more. Though you will find greater numbers of hearing impairment and orthopedic impairment be impacted more, visual impairment also to just some extent. But I think a lot of work has to be done on intellectual disabilities and other disabilities also.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. Now, apart from all that you do you have any hobbies or interests that you pursue?
Yeah. Traveling. I love traveling. Um, I'm traveling almost every month, I think, for at least 3, 4 days, if not more, because my work is very intense and I do get mentally tired. I prefer to travel for 3 or 4 days break in a month to just get rejuvenated. And I like being with nature. And though my work also makes me travel, I mean, we have programs in other cities also now. So I get to go and monitor at times. But that's again work. So for my personal rejuvenation, I like traveling. Actually, I love watching some investigative series, mostly films. I have been a film buff for a very long time, very, very long. Ever since I think I was a kid, I've been a movie buff. And now with OTTs, I get to watch many more. I think mostly I like delving into some psycho-spiritual texts to read and to process human mind and human development also.
Okay, wonderful. In addition to disabilities, are there any societal issues that you deeply care about and want to work on, if you can?
Yeah, what a wonderful question. Transgenders, very close to my heart. I feel their suffering is uh, underestimated. And if given a chance, I would love to work for them because I feel they're not disabled, but handicap is a word that is used in the societal context. Uh, I mean, even disabled people, they're just disabled. They have limitations, but with few changes in the techniques, they can do the same things in a different way. But this term handicap used to be used earlier, not anymore. And if you explore the dictionary, it's more the society context. The society has made um, the infrastructure in a way that some people feel handicapped. In the same way, I feel even transgenders, they're handicapped in certain ways because of the ways society functions. And to bring them to be contributing citizens, the society and the government both have to work harder and more equitable ways. Not much justice has been done with that category of people, and I would love to work more for them.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. We are coming to the end of the podcast. Do you have any questions for me?
I would love to know more from you that you must have spoken to some very successful people till now. And you tell me what kind of categories of work are close to their heart. And given a chance, what would other successful people in the country or in the world want to work for?
Okay, thanks for that question. That's very interesting. There are a couple of things that came up in around 50 plus podcasts that we have done so far. And the major ones are the mental health and bullying in the schools.
Wow, really?
Yes.
Maybe because everybody does get bullied in their educational institutions. Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. I spoke to at least 50 women so far, and many of them are parents, and they have shared that bullying needs to be addressed. So some said that it starts at a particular age. Some shared that it's not about the age, it's about the hormones that trigger the bullying. And so some of them gave solutions like, everybody has to be treated equal in a culture, in a school or an institution, so that nobody feels better than the other one. Nobody feels like a boss over the others. So that is the reasoning behind the bullying, is what they said. This is from a educational institution person. So it was quite valuable to know that. And I hope that the society implements these methods to prevent that from happening in the schools. And of course, mental well-being is a very hot topic today because of the stressful lives that we are living in India, especially because of ultra hypersensitive work environment, as well as the commute and the traffic is not helping either. So there are talks about 90 hours work week and all that, which I don't agree with. We need to take care of our well-being,
Mm.
physical as well as mental, so that we can all live at the peak of our well-being, take care of ourselves, and then contribute to the society to become whatever $1 trillion economy the country wants to become by 2047 or whatever. So these are the two major themes that I have seen in the podcast so far.
Very interesting about the bullying part. Yes, every child suffers, and all of us have suffered in the past. So I guess it's a great topic to be addressed. Yeah. About mental well-being, well, I have my own opinions. I feel by the time, you start blaming the outside factors for your mental well-being, you have made certain choices which are affecting your own mental health. And it's better to start making those choices right from very much earlier in life, understanding how every choice is going to affect your mental health. That drive has to be there, that awareness has to be spread, because as youngsters, we all want to fall into the same traps as to what the other youth is doing, chase money and chase fame and chase success in worldly ways. We don't really see what consequences and repercussions it brings on others. It's much later when we are maybe in 40s or something, when we are going through the repercussions, we understand, oh God, we are in a fix. So I feel the mental well-being, the way it's understood right now, is an afterthought.
Interesting. So the other thing that I would like to mention about mental well-being is self-observation. I
Mm.
have figured that if you observe yourself
Mm.
moment after moment about what you think, what are the thoughts that are going in your mind, that gives a great deal of insight about yourself. and how you think, and whether your thinking is accurate, necessary, or are we thinking random thoughts which are not necessary for mental well-being and all the stuff. So I have observed this with myself and I have come a long way on that. So just wanted to share it here.
Very nice. Very interesting. Yeah. I think 10 years before, or maybe a little more, I used to observe people a lot. Right from, I think, the time I was in market research. I mean, as I said, consumer analysis was what I was learning and it was my forte too. And I felt that people are chasing wrong dreams. It's going to have repercussions. And yes, the right thoughts have to be there. But most of the influencing factors around us, again, there are choices, right? What influences me? That has to be picked up with a lot of thought. What should be influencing me? I feel that is not being taught in schools also somewhere. Schools are also letting the children go behind things which are going to have repercussions later. So somewhere the education system has to now start changing if mental well-being is actually important to us. It's a discussion which can go on, Venkat.
Yeah, and I feel that teachers are an important part in this, and that's another topic for a great discussion altogether. Thank you so much for spending time in our podcast and sharing all your thoughts. It has been a pleasure. And I wish you all the best in all the work that you're doing and whatever you are aspiring to do in the future. Thank you once again. Please take care and bye bye.
Thanks so much for having me. And you too. Have a great week ahead and great time. Thank you.
Bye. That was a great podcast with Shalini Khanna. Please subscribe to this channel and follow it for more awesome podcasts. Opinions expressed by the guests in this podcast are their own. The host or the sponsors of the podcast do not condone the opinions expressed by the guests or the actions arising out of those opinions. Any decisions or actions that the listeners might take as a result of listening to this podcast must be based on their own judgment and will be at their own risk. The podcast host or their sponsors will not be held responsible for the consequences of any actions and or decisions taken as a result of any content in this podcast.